A while ago, I started a small project to conduct a AI-supported scoping review on how AI is being used in thematic analysis. After that first video, I went on my merry way, extracting data, completing my analysis, and writing the full paper that I was going to submit to the journal. It was at that point when I realized that I had screwed up something so badly that I had to redo the entire review. Hi there, I'm Dr. Kenny Wong. I teach research at 2 UK universities and support postgraduate students with their dissertations and theses. This is part 2 of a series on how I conducted an AI-supported scoping review that follows most university AI policies. If you missed the first video, that's where I go from research idea to conducting database searches. In this series, I'm going to show you everything I did. The good, the bad, every mistake I made and how I fixed them. This series also shares how AI can be used ethically and responsibly in research to enhance and elevate your work rather than to replace the learning, judgment and creative arguments that only you can make. So let's get on with this travesty of a review and allow me to confess to my mistakes. Picking up from where I left off in the first video, I ended up with 83 papers for full text screening. The full text screening was conducted manually, resulting in 46 studies being included in the review. I conducted 2 rounds of data extraction simultaneously. One was a manual one and another one was an automated one using illicit AI. I later combined and triangulated both extractions to produce one master data extraction. Writing the results was largely a matter of turning those columns into a narrative form. The discussion section then followed quite quickly. I drafted the full paper, about 11,000 words in the first draft, documenting every single step with as much transparency as possible. I'll explain how I wrote up each section in more detail in part 4 of the series. It was only at this point when I realized that I had screwed up over something very small. I didn't properly save my search histories. All of my search histories on PubMed and Scopus, which I assume would still be there, were completely wiped even though they were saved. Everything was gone. The search strings, the results, all of it. This is catastrophic for a scoping review. If you don't have a replicable search strategy and transparent documentation, your review fails one of the most fundamental criteria, especially when you're claiming to use a systematic approach. I couldn't replicate the searches. Even though I kept a journal of the amendments to the search string, I didn't save the final versions that will actually run on the databases. The only way to salvage the review is to rerun the searches, which essentially means that I had to redo the entire review from scratch. I started this review in March 2024 and it was February 2025 when I realized this. So that's 1 full year of work that's essentially just gone. Before hitting the reset button though, I took this opportunity to reflect on what I had learned and how the review could be improved. If I was going to redo it, it needed to be a better one. In the previous video, to make this review more manageable, I've narrowed down from a 5-year review to a 3-year period. What I realized was that the papers within the last 3 years are citing papers from 5 years ago to justify their AI approaches. So for this review to more accurately map the field, I needed to go back to a 5-year review. This was something that I couldn't have known until I actually read the papers, so redoing is actually improving the rigor of the review. In the previous video, I mentioned that there was some messiness in thematic analysis and how it was being defined in the review papers. Having read these papers now, I realized that this was a big flaw in the review. Authors conceptualize thematic analysis very differently, and some papers use terms like themes and thematic without explicitly calling it thematic analysis, and then later conflating it with content analysis and sentiment analysis. This was diluting the review's conclusion and also confusing the review with other methods. For more accuracy and validity in this review, I needed to be stricter on these exclusion criteria and clearly exclude papers that explicitly referred to the process as sentiment analysis and content analysis. I also excluded papers that didn't cite any material when describing their thematic analysis because I needed to know which known thematic analysis processes the researchers are pairing AI with. I was initially satisfied with PubMed and Scopus, but then I also realized that CINAHL would have actually captured allied health and nursing research that I could have missed, so it was helpful to include that as a database in the second round. Initially, Initially, I wanted to explore how researchers write about their analysis methods and how they conveyed the results of their thematic analysis in the review. But I found out that this information was not very useful because authors are often bound by word count and feedback from their reviewers at the journal. Much of this information is excluded because these authors are not writing methodological papers and their focus is on reporting results. The review is also about how AI was used, and this was quite secondary to that interest. So I removed this objective from the study. I also initially wanted to look at which qualitative methodology that was used with AI. Turns out most of these papers did not even declare which methodology they use anyway, so I wasn't able to extract much information about it. Having completed the review once and produced findings showed that I was on the right track. Much of the processes stayed the same, but I refined the parameters and the eligibility criteria. The review became much more focused on how AI was used specifically within thematic analysis. I reran the searches across PubMed and CINAHL. This time, because I was stricter about thematic analysis, I searched explicitly for that term in the titles and abstract using tight proximity settings. I wanted to avoid papers that simply mention themes, which caused many issues previously, by pulling in content and sentiment analysis studies. Using artificial intelligence as a mesh term worked very well and covered a broad range of relevant technologies. In the previous review, additional AI-related terms like neural networks did not actually retrieve any unique papers, so the mesh term alone was sufficient. On Scopus, I mirrored the search strategy but expanded the AI term since mesh wasn't used. Because Scopus covers a wide range of disciplines, I applied filters to focus on healthcare and excluded other scoping and systematic reviews, as this review focuses on empirical research. I followed the same workflow as before. I deduplicated records in Rayan, removing 237 duplicates. I uploaded 801 records to AS Review. If you have missed it, I explained how AS Review works in the previous video. This time, because my criteria was stringent, I applied a more rigorous stopping rule. So instead of stopping after 50 consecutive irrelevant records, I stopped after 100, which aligns better with similar reviews using AS Review. Despite this, I manually screened for 364 records. AS Review excluded 327 records for me. This is the screening statistic from the 2 screenings that I've done. You can see that AI is doing even more of the heavy lifting this time, meaning I screened proportionately fewer papers. After title and abstract screening, 110 papers passed and 106 full texts were retrieved. 4 papers were unobtainable. Of the 106 full text papers, 68 were excluded, mostly because AI was not used in the thematic analysis itself, or it was only used for peripheral tasks like data cleaning or data collection. Because I completed the review once before, I had a repository of papers that might have been missed because of the revised search strategy. I screened these papers using the same criteria. 5 were added from my own collection. I also conducted reference chaining and screened 21 additional papers, of which only 1 was included. In total, the final review included 39 papers. Despite searching more databases, the review became smaller due to stricter eligibility criteria and a tighter focus this time round. Now, this is a side note for dissertation students and postgraduate research students as well. I am doing this research without deadlines. In a dissertation, 39 papers is a lot. This review focuses on research methods across healthcare papers, so a large number is actually expected for this review. For most dissertations, more papers mean more data to manage, synthesize, and write about. Often, you do not have the time or the word count to do it all justice. So I usually guide students towards a range of 12 to 25 papers by adjusting parameters like year ranges and eligibility criteria before you even start. This involves trial and error, which is why testing and refining your search strategy early on is so important. Otherwise, you can easily end up with hundreds of papers in a review. Now, as you can see, redoing the review isn't the worst thing in the world. It gave me an opportunity to make the review stronger, more transparent, more rigorous, even though I'm still really bitter about losing a whole year of work. This is also what I tell my master's students that I supervise. You are going to make mistakes in your review. If you register your review on Prospero, for example, too early or set expectations to publish, you can box yourself into a corner where mistakes become unacceptable. That often leads students to focus focus on avoiding errors rather than learning from them. The result is either endless tinkering with a search strategy or a review that cannot be published anyway because you have made too many changes after the protocol. In your masters, you're allowed to make mistakes. You learn from them with your supervisor. After you have received feedback and your results from your masters, you can revisit the work without the pressure of deadlines and marking and approach it as a stronger researcher. In the next video, part 3, I will cover how I updated my data extraction process. I will also link the full paper in the description so that you can see every step in detail along with my academic justifications and my references if you're using AI supported review methods yourself. If you're watching this, you'll probably find my previous video when using AI for research helpful. I have other videos on common scoping review mistakes on the channel as well. I will see you in the next video.